Okay, it is June 26, 2017. Eric Larson here with the Labor Commission, the Wage Claim Unit. I'll be hearing the case Mr. Rex Bagley versus Duke Services and Labor Finder Intermountain. Both claims are retaliation claims. Mr. Bagley's case against Duke Services is case number 17-01247. The case against Labor Finders Intermountain is 17-01245. And again, each of those cases are retaliation claims. Mr. Bagley made a motion at the start of this proceeding to have a different law judge hear the case. The responding parties did not oppose nor necessarily agree to that, but the commission decided to grant that, which is why I'm sitting in here in place of Mr. Rammel, Steve Rammel, the normal administrative law judge. Let's start, Mr. Duke. You're with. Tell me the company that you're representing today.
Duke Services.
Okay, thank you. That makes perfect sense. And Tammy and Courtney, you're with Labor Finders, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's international, not Intermountain, so you know.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I was glancing at it upside down. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for that. For the record, it should be noted that the Labor Finders Intermountain Price Office has been removed as a party in this claim. I understand that our office served the Price Office previously, but that party will be removed from the order because they're not related in any way to the claims.
How are you guys listed in
was
the
it?
state database? I have a question before we begin. The scope of this hearing. Is the scope of this hearing just to determine whether there are the employers, or is this the actual hearing?
This is the actual hearing to issue an order on your retaliation claims against Duke Services and Labor Finders Intermountain.
Okay, because I was under the understanding, according to the notice, that this was just to determine whether they were They were the employer.
I'm not sure how you got that impression. It's the hearing for your retaliation claims against each entity, Labor Finders and Duke Services.
Well, I can go through the mail that they sent me and explain to you. Do we need to do that?
If you don't feel prepared to discuss or order or
It could be prejudicial, is what I'm saying. Ultimately, it could be prejudicial. I would move for summary judgment against Labor Finders and let this issue is precluded. The collateral estoppel would apply here because the issue has already been adjudicated or litigated in the Department of Workforce Services Unemployment Division.
okay, but you filed a retaliation claim in our office.
Yes, but the same facts.
Which is separate from Department of Work Services.
But the same facts and assertions were already litigated in that case.
That's a separate case as far as this office is concerned.
Yes, but according to collateral estoppel.
No, I'm telling you, according to our processes.
Well, that would be my motion. Would you deny that motion?
Tell me your motion again.
That Labor Finders is collaterally estopped from relitigating the same facts and assertions that they litigated previously in the Department of Workforce Services Unemployment Division unemployment insurance claim.
All that I'm concerned with today are the allegations that you have made and the responses that the respondents have made in your retaliation claim that was filed in this office.
Which were the same assertions for the insurance claim.
And that decision was made in that office, and I'm here today to make an order on these claims that were filed in this office.
Correct, which is what I'm stating, this collaterally estopped. It says it's been previously litigated by another state agency, which would collaterally estop you from relitigating the same issues.
Then why was the claim filed in our office to begin with by you?
It hadn't been litigated yet.
It needs to be litigated now, which is the reason that we're all here today.
It has been litigated.
Not here, it has not.
No, in another entity.
That makes no difference to our processes here.
It does, according to collateral estoppel, so that's my motion.
I'm denying your motion.
Okay.
because we are here again to make an order on the retaliation claims that you filed.
Okay.
Okay, tell me your claim against Duke Services, if you would. Why you believe you retaliated against that company?
Because directly from Jason Duke's mouth, he says I can't work for him anymore because I complained to labor finders about 30 minutes of pay that I didn't receive. So because I brought up the issue of non-payment of wages or a dispute over wages, I was fired by Jason Duke. After informing labor finders that Jason Duke had terminated me from his assignment, I was subsequently fired by labor finders.
When did your employment begin with Duke Services?
It was approximately, do you have the date?
You know what, I don't, Rex, I think it,
It's on or about December 22nd.
oh, it was December 21st.
December 21st.
Yeah.
And what sort of work did you do with Duke Services?
Actually, it was 1-3. It was 1-2 when
That was the
1-2 when it
last
happened.
day.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so if you want to start it.
Yeah.
Sorry, what was that?
What was your job title, or what kind of work did you do with Duke Services?
I was a laborer, construction laborer.
And who was your supervisor?
Jason Duke.
Okay. Tell me again why you believe you were retaliated against by Duke Services.
Because I had brought up the issue of non-payment of wages with labor finders. They contacted Jason Duke about it. Jason Duke called me that morning on a day that I was scheduled to work for him and said he says we're fucking done. You're gonna call and complain about 30 minutes to labor finders, which are his exact words, or as close to his exact words as I can get if they're not his exact words. Because I had brought up the issue of non-payment of wages with labor finders.
When did you bring that issue up to Mr. Duke?
I didn't bring up the
You
issue
brought it up to me.
I brought it up to labor finders. They talked to him about it. Tammy talked to him about it.
Okay. Give me, if you can, an idea of the timing. You began approximately with Duke Services on December 21st.
It was on or about January 3rd.
January 3rd, yeah. 2nd and 3rd.
Well, actually, that was the day that the
Oh, no, it
non-payment
had to
occurred.
be before
The
that.
4th was the day that I spoke with Tammy and
Give me an idea, if you
Duke
can,
did that.
the time between your start date, your first day of work, and when the confrontation, for lack of a better term, occurred between you and Mr. Duke. Was it your first day? Was it 30 minutes after you started the job? Was it 3 weeks after you started the job? When did...
It was 2 to 3 weeks. It was on the 3rd week, and we had been talking about hiring on full time at that point.
Had you been paid at all by Duke Services prior to that?
Yes, every day.
No, sir, I never paid him. I pay labor finders, and labor finders writes them a check.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
He's initially we're a staffing agency. We're what they consider day labor.
Mm-hmm.
So the guy's like this is a work ticket. And this is what we present to them in the mornings, and this is what they bring back to us, and there's 3 copies to it.
Okay.
And he signs it, so
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he signs it.
and he ultimately pays me.
And then he pays us, we bill him out every Friday or whenever they need it, and then we bill him out, and then we pay their, their taxes, the workman's comp, all the liabilities out that way.
Okay.
But he puts down the hours, and he puts down, then we go in and we pay him out for what they've signed for.
And that form you showed me is a daily
Yeah, daily.
timesheet, so
Yeah.
to speak.
Yeah.
Okay.
You should have one on record that I sent him, which is the actual,
This is the
was the
one.
day that, well, no, this is the one where the
Half
the
hour.
non-payment, yeah.
Yeah.
But yet the one that they have on file is the one for the next day that you gave me, which you wouldn't have gave me unless he marked yes on this
Right.
one here.
You're right, that's true.
Right. So I was scheduled to work on the 4th, but didn't go to work because he called me. And that's when he told me that I was being fired because he was done with me because I had complained about half an hour.
You still have your call.
Were you paid by labor finders daily? How did you receive your wages?
Labor Finders gave me a check.
Daily?
Daily.
Okay. And just so I understand right, your allegations, you were shorted, or you were owed half an hour of wages, which you confronted Mr. Duke about, and then he subsequently terminated you.
No, he confronted
No.
labor finders
He told
about it.
me about it.
Okay.
No.
And
no.
I called Jason.
I was actually at that time short of 45 minutes worth of time, but we reached a settlement of 30 because that was something that we could prove because of the 7:30.
Okay.
I was supposed to show up, and 8 o'clock was when he signed it for. So the ticket said show up at 7:30. I was there at 7:30, but he didn't want to pay from 7:30 to 8 because he didn't show up. He said that I didn't show up, but I was there. And so that was the half hour that they stipulated to pay.
Yeah, so we paid him for that.
Half hour.
Okay.
But there was additional time, and there was additional time from other days that I had brought up before with them. Not you, with, what's her name?
Chantel?
Chantel, yeah. And I don't know, I can't remember if she paid me, but I think she probably did if you go back.
Sir, you can look at the time frame on those, and the time it takes for him to get from 9th South to their office. There has been hours, 45 minutes here, 30 minutes there. Oh, I don't have any money, I'm homeless. I give you an extra 15 minutes. I give you an extra 30 minutes. I give you an extra 45 minutes. There's extra, you can tell for the time frame, for the time he clocked out, for the time he got there, there's no way he got there in 10 minutes. Okay, there was more, I gave him more time than what he worked.
I'm actually glad you said that. Because if we do...
Not including the Christmas cards I gave him, the booties for his shoes, the extra gloves, the extra things that I was giving him because I felt sorry for him. He had this story about how everybody was down on him, this and that. Well, just became up to the point where you just didn't want to hear it anymore. He was asking one of my employees to take him to lunch, and then he would call me. He called me several times from Wi-Fi because he didn't actually have a phone, so he was doing Wi-Fi phone calls and complaining about, well, your guy's doing this. Dude, I don't have time for this, Rex. And it was a constant badgering is the reason I just got tired of it. They're temporary guys. If they don't work out, Tammy is very, very good at her job. She finds you somebody else. Not everybody's going to be an all-star. Not everybody's going to be good at this particular job. So when somebody you get tired of hearing their complaining, yeah, you know what? I'm tired of it. Just send me out a different laborer.
Okay, Mr. Bagley, tell me again specifically what you recall of the day that you confronted Mr. Duke on the shortage of payment and that you were subsequently terminated.
Again, I didn't confront him. I told them, they contacted him, he called me.
Okay.
He called me in the morning, changed the time from 7:30 to 8 o'clock start time because he wasn't going to be there. Tammy called him somewhere in between that time that he called me and when he later called me. And when he later called me, he told me, we're fucking done. You called labor finders and complained about 30 minutes. And then I said, yeah, and then he went on with something else, and I think I just hung up the phone. I don't know. He may have hung up the phone. I don't remember how it ended, but that's how it began.
So how it works is, we bill Jason Duke for the hours that he signs for, okay?
That Mr. Duke signs for.
Yes.
Okay.
When I wasn't there, when he confronted Courtney, that's why I brought her today. She was there, and they had a discussion. I wasn't there, so I can't say. She can tell you.
Confrontation?
Yeah, not confrontation. No, just had a conversation.
Yeah.
Is what I meant to say. Sorry, but wrong word choice. But and then I didn't even know anything about it until that morning after I got to work, and I'm going through the work tickets. But he was paid the half hour. But when I talked to Jason said that him and Rex, sometimes they would go through and Rex would be an hour late and he was making up for that, you know what I mean? Or maybe 20 minutes, I don't know for sure. But the half an hour, Courtney paid him when he came in that day, that half an hour. But he talked to her about it. And I talked to Jason that morning.
Okay. Mr. Bagley, did you tell anyone at Labor Finders or Duke Services that you were thinking or planning or had filed a wage claim of unpaid wages?
I was fired that same day, the same morning. I didn't even know, Tammy, you didn't even tell me that I was fired. You said you were going to call Human Resources and get back to me. You got back to me, said you left a message, and then I called later, I think I spoke with you, and asked if she had left you any information on what had happened. You were indicating to me that I was going to go back to work the next day. Yeah. But then I called Human Resources, and Human Resources told me, well, Tammy left a message that you're fired.
No, I didn't.
What are you talking about? And so I was fired.
No, what happened is I called Human Resources. My mom was in a retirement. She was very ill at the time. And I left her a message. Before this, we had previous things happen between me and him or whoever. And we don't need to go into, but so what happened on that is I called up for some advice on what to do on that. She told me, and I wasn't there, that Rex had asked her if she had a college degree if she was stupid. And did that happen, Rex, or anything to that way? No. I'd have to bring her in. But at that point, Charlotte said she did tell him, we no longer need your services. But it wasn't over that wages. What's happened is over time, we just did not see eye to eye on things. It was very, I'm there to run a business, and I'm there to do the best I can do at it. I've never judged anybody in there. I've never considered them to be any different than me. I've been down on my luck too in life. And I...
Oh, objection. That, I know he's testified and said that's something
let her finish her statement. Please.
All right.
Her thoughts.
And so anyway, we had previous problems before, and as a person, I had nothing against Rex. Me and Rex talked. I always made you feel welcome. I've never discriminated against him, and at least in my view, in my eyes. And I don't feel like I was cheating Rex from anything. To be totally honest with you, we're not in there to come through these hearings or keep the business as long as we have by cheating people. Courtney took it upon herself to pay that half hour. I didn't know what had even transpired. And, maybe... and that was between them two, and that's why I had her here, but we're not in the business to take a half hour from somebody. I mean, we did what we could do on our end. And Jason has been very good. He pays his bills. He liked Rex as an employee, but there just became complications, disagreements on things. I wasn't there. I don't know. I can't speak for Jason or Rex. I can just speak for us.
Can I just... How much do you charge Duke Services?
I can't tell you that.
This is $15.50. You've already told me.
No, I haven't.
Yeah, is it $15.50?
No,
I don't think it's really relevant.
it's not.
It is, because I was being paid $9 an hour. So that was roughly 60% of the total amount of money that was being paid was going to you,
Okay.
whereas I was getting $9 an hour.
Let me step back a little bit. It's a day. Who do you report to? I just want to kind of get in my mind a better picture for the work situation. Did you report to Labor Services daily to be told where and when and?
Sometimes.
Yeah, let me just hit all the points for you. I worked under the direction and control of Jason Duke.
How?
There's never.
Okay.
He told me what duties I would be performing on that day.
Let me ask the questions if I could.
Okay.
When you woke up, it's a day job, right? You report daily to someone to find what time you start, where you're going, what your jobs are, or
No. That's why we were saying is usually I would do that with labor finders, but this was a continuing assignment. So they gave me the assignment the next day because he marks yes on the ticket.
Yeah, he was on the same job for
Like
a little
this.
over 2 weeks, and so he would get his ticket the
So
night
what
before.
they do is they would write no or yes if they needed them back the next day.
I see.
Some assignments last a day, some assignments last a week, some of them last, longer. It just kind of varies
Which
because it's
means-
a day-to-day. You can have
And
that.
Mr. Bagley would
You
find
know,
out.
and it's just like what Tammy was saying, is that I actually liked Rex to begin with. He was a hard worker. He could retain what you were telling him. And Tammy is in the business, and I would ask her, okay, if I find somebody that I like, what do I have to do to keep this guy?
No, he has the back.
Because I tell you what, we're in the business of finding people jobs. We're not trying to make a ton of money off these people. If we can find someone a job, that's the road we want to take. If that guy works out for you and you want to hire him on full time, let us know. We'll let it work out. And that was the intention with Rex, is I wanted to hire him full time because he was doing a good job. He was working like he was supposed to. He was showing up on time. But the problem with it is the constant badgering. Not only was he badgering me, he was badgering my employees. He constantly had issues coming up. Oh, I got to do this. I got to get out of here at this amount of time. When we're working till 5, 6, 7 o'clock at night, he had to be gone by 3:45, 4 o'clock at the latest, so that he could go down, take his time in, and labor finders and get a check from labor finders, so that he had enough money to make it through the next day. I was completely understanding of that.
Okay. How? Let me ask Mr. Bagley. How did you find out, or how were you informed that you were going to be employed the following day? Did you get this type of sheet from labor finders? Did you call them in the morning? Did you stop by in the afternoon? How did you know the next day you were going to go to work?
That's the sheet. Yeah. So I go back the next day to work when he marks yes on there. That's the point. He says just now, contradictory to what he said previously, and that I showed up all the time. He's right. He says that I missed a lot. I only missed one day, and I can tell you exactly what day it is if I were to go back over my calendar. Not missed the entire day, but told him and had it pre-approved that I would be about an hour late, and I was an hour late because I had a prior engagement. Okay?
No, I never had a problem with it. If you had to-
we're getting off
I've never
base.
had a problem with people.
Did
What I'm
did you go to
you got
labor
something
finders
you gotta
at the end of
take
each
care
day to
of.
pick up
Yeah.
this or
Yeah.
find out you're working the next day?
But let me help you to understand.
He
If you
would tell,
look here,
labor finders would tell him if he was working.
if you look here,
I communicate
this says
with
that
labor finders.
this says that the
Okay.
work that I performed for that day was satisfactory. This means he wants me back the next day.
And how did you catch wind of this? Did you stop at labor finders at the end of each
He
day?
signed that at the end of each day.
How did you find out you were going to be employed the following day?
So he brings that to
I
him.
bring that to labor finders.
Gotcha.
And that
That's-
tells you that they want you back the next
So we
day.
give that to him in the
Okay.
morning, a blank one. He
And
takes
when I
it
get-
to work, they sign it, he brings it back.
When I
I
get
see.
my check for that night, they give me that
Yeah,
ticket.
and so we look at that and see if they want him back, and then we give him another one if he does.
Okay.
And
Mr. Bagley, who did you first tell that you were being underpaid? Who did you allege underpayment of wages to?
I had told him one time before about
You told Mr. Duke?
about where he had asked me for my ticket. He had signed it, but then he left, and we had ended up staying a half an hour later. And so he did change the next days, put the half hour back on it. Okay, but he was regularly doing that, in that he would ask for the ticket and sign it out at 4 o'clock. But he would ask at 4 o'clock, And then at 4 o'clock after that, then he'd continue to ask me to do more things. You know what I mean? He would do that regularly. And then when he did this, he says, he says, you weren't there, you didn't start working until 8 o'clock.
I'm sorry, what did you mean when he did what?
That's what, when he said, you weren't there, or you didn't start working until 8 o'clock, although the ticket says I have to be there at 7:30, and that's the start time every day, is that I'm supposed to be there at 7:30. And I was there at 7:30, waiting for about it was actually 15 minutes until his other employee got there. He didn't even show up for probably an hour, not until about 8:30. And then he says, you didn't start working. But yes, we did, because number one, I was there, and I had to be there. I was required to be there at 7:30 according to the ticket. If I wasn't there, I'd be late. 2, 15 minutes after I was there, his other employee showed up, and we began working under his directions, and he didn't show up till 8:30. I believe his other employee, actually he did, his other employee showed me he has some online timekeeping thing that's like, it was tied to like GPS, I think. It was weird. I'd never seen anything like it before. But so he'd be on the job, and then he would put in his time using some kind of a GPS-linked application online. Well, he said he forgot to even to log in, and he said that Duke wouldn't even change that. Now, whether he's lying or not, I don't know, but he showed me that day. All I know is with my experience, that's what he did.
Okay, Rex, how were you able to make it? If I'm keeping you there after 4 o'clock, how are you able to make it from 9th South with no bike, no skateboard, no vehicle of any type of transportation? How are you able to make it all the way over to Labor Finders on 2100 South by 4:15? If I'm keeping you after 4 o'clock every day, how are you able to make it to there on time to get your check? Every day. Because you even said yourself, every day I got paid. Every day I cashed that check.
Like
every day you go and get a new piece of paperwork from Labor Finders. How is that even possible? You're just trying to blow sunshine right now, dude.
I'm glad you asked that, because the time that this one was printed was 4:56. The entire process while I'm in Labor Finders is approximately 3-4 minutes to run the check, to process the ticket, and to print the check and the ticket. So the time is 4:56. The actual time frame, it takes about 10 minutes to walk from that job site, approximately three blocks. It takes within 10 minutes to go from 5th West up to 2nd West where the tracks is. The tracks then takes me from 9th through 13th to 21st, which takes approximately 3 to 5 minutes, which is 15 minutes. Then you have to wait for
You're just fumbling over your words now.
For the S line. The S line leaves at 20 after, 40 after, and on the hour. So you would typically arrive there between 5 and 2 minutes before that leaves. So that would take another 3 minutes. So approximately 25, it would take me up to about Main Street and 22nd 100 South, at which point I'd need to walk down to the office, which takes about another additional 5 minutes.
So every day you were precisely jumping on that at exactly 4:02.
Absolutely. The reason being is because I needed to make it back to the Wells Fargo bank that closed at 5, because if I didn't go to Wells Fargo, I would have to take out of the $50 check $2 to $3 in money to cash the check at a check cashing place. However, if I went to the Wells Fargo, I didn't lose money. And since I needed all of the money that I was making on the $9 an hour job that you were giving me when you were cutting my hours to get my hotel, as you've referred to before, because you like to intrude into my personal life and ask me all the personal questions, and you did pick up on the fact that sometimes I would bring a backpack to work.
You're the one that came out and
then
hey, look,
I needed all that money. So
okay, gentlemen, we need to pull it back in.
More time? They're only paying me like $4 an hour. Can I get some more time? Can I get a rate? That's something you needed to discuss with labor finders. Whatever you were making them, they were charging me, was none of your business. Even though you try to make it part of your business, it really wasn't. So whatever they're getting on top of it, they're covering not only your insurance, your workman's comp, your taxes, and everything else on top of that. Whatever I was paying them was none of your business.
It's my business because...
Gentlemen,
We're getting
gentlemen,
off ship here.
Well, actually,
Mr. Bagley, who, in your opinion, terminated your employment?
Jason terminated my employment, and that termination with him influenced labor finders to ultimately terminate me, because there was no other issue at that time to actually terminate me for.
I do not have the power to hire and fire people that work for labor finders.
You actually do. How many people have you turned away when they come to work for you?
I've let you make a comment, a statement. Let's do the same to him, please.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Rex, the reason that I was upset and done with him was a plethora of things. His constant badgering. Well, let's reiterate the conversation. It's because of him complaining, whining. I don't have any food. Here's a couple dollars for food. I don't have any money for water. I never had any water or anything else like that. I constantly was having to give him water. I was constantly having to give him cigarettes. Ryan was constantly having to give him cigarettes. He was giving him rides back and forth, and then he'd call me and complain about it.
Okay, Mr. Duke.
I'm trying to run a business. I don't have time to listen to people whine and complain.
Mr. Duke, if you're unsatisfied with an employee that's I don't even want to say working for you, you assert that Labor Finders is in control of the employees that cross paths with you. Is that fair to say?
I call Labor Finders and say, hey, look, this is the situation. Okay, well, if he's not working, we'll send you somebody else. I can't go and fire him.
But you can let Labor Finders know you're unsatisfied, and then Labor Finders terminates the employment relationship. Is that correct?
Whatever termination goes on has to go through Labor Finders. They are the sole... They are the employers, not me.
But you can initiate that process by notifying Labor Finders that the worker is not up to snuff, so to speak.
I can say, yes, I'm not happy with this guy.
Okay. And at that point, Labor Finders will act accordingly, terminate the employee, find another location for the employee to work.
True.
You know, I'm not really sure exactly how that all works. All I know is if I call, I can tell him, hey, look, I'm very unhappy with this guy. I'm just tired of him complaining. He's not showing up on time, whatever.
Okay.
And then at that point, then they take their action from there.
Okay. If I could ask either Tammy or Courtney, Labor Finders, in your opinion, terminated the job that Mr. Bagley was performing with the Duke Services. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
And why did that happen?
Well, it had to do with several things, but when I talked to Rex and I talked to Duke Services about what had happened, Duke Services, as you can tell, was kind of unhappy with the things that were going on. I think, and so he couldn't go back to Duke Services. So I told Rex that morning, I said, I will see if I can find you something else. Correct? And
you did tell me that, yes.
And so at that point, I left. My mom was ill. And I contacted Human Resources, and because of problems we had in the past, he got a hold of Charlotte, because I told him I was going to call Human Resources on it, because I don't do anything without, many things like that without talking to her. So I called her up, and I left her a message, and then I spoke to her, and about Rex Bagley, and then he contacted her. I guess he contacted Courtney before that, and then contacted her, and I guess there were some words said, and I'm not sure exactly what, just what she told me, and she said, I told him we no longer need his services. Okay. And as it, Honestly, as an agency, we are responsible for these people. Duke Services takes us on as their staffing needs. Some people can do work to make a better example of how it works. Some people can do harder work than others. So you have to be able to send the right person sometimes. You're not always able to do that. And it's their money. So if they choose they don't want somebody back, us as an agency, that's our job to find them what they need. That's what they pay for. They have nothing to do with their hourly pay unless they say to us, you know, Tammy, I want this particular pay, that, because it goes by wages, it goes by different things. That includes the workman's comp, everything to go with it. We are what they call, so if we have a thing where if they call within a certain couple hours and don't want anybody within that, don't want that person we sent to them, we find them somebody else. This is something in a staffing agency or day labor that you deal with on a regular basis. Mm-hmm. It's not new to us, it's not new to Duke Services, and it's not new to Rex. Okay. Rex worked with us for quite a long time. We've had our difficulties, and we've had problems with each other and disagreements on things, and we worked through them, and here we are again on this. Okay. He wasn't cheated the half hour. We paid him the half hour that he said that was owed to him. All we did was try to verify through Jason, because we wrote it off. We unbilled Jason. We couldn't bill him for that half hour. You know what I'm saying? So Courtney unbilled it. She gave it to him. She didn't want any problems that way, and said, look at it. This is what is owed. This is what. In the meantime, there was a conversation, and, you know, Duke Services, all he was doing is getting his needs filled. Right. That's all he was doing. All we were doing is trying to fill his needs. Right. As a temp labor. So, you know, you have your pros and your cons with that. Sometimes you get people you get along with and something you don't. They don't have that interview process of day labor. They get what comes. Right. So he liked Rex, and Rex is a good worker. Don't take me wrong. You know, he would go to work, but the problem is the fact that I guess there was several times that Rex was unhappy, and there's times that Jason was unhappy. And you put the two together, it's better to separate than it is to put them on the same spot, because he's paying for this service.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Vance. Mr. Bagley, on your initial retaliation claim form, you put that your last day of employment was January 4th. Does that sound about right when your job ended with Duke Services, January 4th, 2017?
Yes. So I'll just reiterate the sequence of events. The morning of the 4th, January 4th, I was going to go to work for Duke Services because I had the ticket to go work for Duke Services. I'd actually, Courtney, I don't know if you remember, but you said to not go in until 8 if they weren't going to pay me until 8.
I did tell them that if they were short in hours, because I hadn't talked to Jason at the time, so I didn't know exactly what was happening, and so I said if they weren't going to pay you till 8 o'clock, don't go at 8.
Don't come in until 8. So I was actually, it was a courtesy to let Tammy know that she had said that, because I wanted them to be on the same page, especially if I didn't show up at 7:30, what the ticket said, you know, when he calls in or something. So I was making Tammy aware. So me and Tammy spoke. After I spoke to her, Duke Services, Jason Duke, called me and said, hey, we're switching until 8 o'clock today. Okay. But I had already told Tammy that I was planning to go to work for someone else. And so he called me later and says what we had talked about before, where he essentially fires me, and then I called Tammy back and told him, hey, he just fired me, yada, yada, yada. So we go on from there. She says she's going to call Human Resources. She apparently does call Human Resources, and she calls me back, tells me that she left a message. I called Courtney later that day to see if she had left any information on, you know, whether they got back to her or not. She says no. I call Human Resources. The very first thing when I tell her that I'm calling is that Tammy had called her and left a message that I was being let go. Okay, so there was no exchange prior to being told that I was being let go. So it wasn't I was being let go because I got into an argument with the human resources person. It was I was being let go before I even got there, and I was totally blindsided when it happened because every indication from her was that I was going out the next day. Okay. The other thing is that they're actually considering the dispute over wages to be a terminable offense. It's not a terminable offense. It's actually a protected offense. To bring it up, I am protected to bring it up by the law. Okay? Had he had not wanted me to go back, he could have simply put no. And I would have been done. He could have, had he not wanted to hire me, he could have turned me away when I got there the first day. He'd done it multiple times with other people. So,
prior to being let go by Duke Services, do you remember mentioning to Mr. Duke or Tammy or Courtney or anybody at Labor Finders that you're going to talk to the state, you're going to file a wage claim, that you're going to come to the Labor Commission, anything of that nature?
I talked to Tammy about that. I didn't say I was going to because at that time I wasn't exactly sure. I said I think this is retaliation, and that this could be an issue for the Labor Commission. I told that to her before she called the Human Resources people. And then I called the Labor Commission, and they told me, yeah, it does.
That conversation took place after you were let go?
Before I was let go. Before she called Human Resources.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, to me...
I don't remember that. I remember talking about it, but I remember him telling me, okay, this is how it happened. That morning, and he called me up, and I didn't know about the half hour because I hadn't discussed with Courtney. I go in and open up, and Courtney was there in the afternoon, so I don't pay people half the time. And then he told me about the half hour, so I call up Courtney, and I go, what is going on, with this half hour thing? And Courtney and I happened to look down at the ticket, and I seen it was 7 on there, but I looked at his check, and it was 7.5 hours. So I thought, well, she already paid him the half hour. So she took it upon herself to go in and pay Rex what she figured he was owed, and then she told him if you're not going to start at 8 or whatever the discussion they had. And then he told me, and I was like, oh, okay. And I talked to Jason, and I said, our thing is somebody's being cheated something, we want to know what's going on. Okay? That's all the conversation was. Jason said, no, Tammy. He said he would come in early one day. I figured everything was fine, work late. You know what I mean? And then he started telling me some of the things that was going on between them. And that's how it all in thingy. And because of past history, I contacted Human Resources because, there's been things that Rex has, been unhappy with, or vice versa, whatever the case may be. Then that's how it all happened. I get really careful because I like to make sure that I'm doing my job right, and Courtney's doing hers, and keeping him happy, or whoever it may be at the same time. That was just a procedure, and that's the way it went.
So we feel that he wasn't let go because he said something about the half hour. Because we gave him a ticket to go to work the next day. Mm-hmm. We were going to put him to work. The issue that we have, and you can see, this is his profile, the comments that were, he's come and he's threatened our driver, he's called and harassed Tammy on the phone, previous incidents. So anytime that he gets upset that something's not going his way, whether he doesn't think he deserves $9 an hour on this job, he comes in and he throws a fit and he yells and he threatens people. That's why he was let go from our office.
Okay.
He did not threaten anybody at this time,
no.
But he wasn't nice either.
Okay.
Or professional. That's what that...
Nice or professional the day that I spoke with you about this?
Yes. I'm talking about the next day.
I wasn't nice or professional the next day.
Okay, I have no further questions. I'll review the information that's been submitted, the information that's been put on the record today, and issue an order hopefully within 10 days' time and get that out to all the parties. Is there anything else that anyone would like to add as it relates to the retaliation allegations?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Just that this is what we call pretext. And there's no coincidence that it all occurred on the same day within a few hours of itself.
These go back
They didn't happen
to
on the same
January
day.
of the previous year,
January of the previous year.
of 2016.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Duke, for your time and participating by phone today. I'll, again, get the order out, hopefully within 10 days' time, if not less.
Thank
Okay,
you,
thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. One and all.
Have a good day.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, Rex.